Hi, my name's Keith Cooper at Northlight Images, and I get to test and review quite a lot of printers over quite a few years now. Now, the reviews I write and also the videos I do are quite detailed, but it's important to realise that there are some aspects of printer functionality, how they work, what sort of performance you get from them, that I simply cannot cover in reviews. And these are things that I'm going to say that if you see a review that is covering this sort of, look carefully at the information, the data behind it, because there are some things you just can't find out about printers from just testing them, even if I get one for a couple of months or so. So what sort of things can I not really give you useful information for? Now, fortunately, there are loads of useful bits I can give you information for, like, image quality, paper handling, various things and stuff like that. But at the most basic, I cannot usually tell you how much one of these printers is going to cost. The reason for that is that I'm in the UK. I don't actually buy printers. I couldn't afford to do it, to do all these testing for here. So I rely on getting loans from manufacturers. As such, I've got no idea of the prices of the, and particular if I'm testing a brand new printer that's only just come out, within a few months the price may have gone up, may have gone down, and also it's going to be different in different parts of the world. So prices is something that you're very much going to have to look out for yourself. So how much as well over time? It varies by region, everything. How much ink do they use? This is a big question I get asked. Now, obviously the ink tank printers like this one, this is Epson ET8500, they tend to be sold and bought by people for cheaper inks because the ink comes in bottles. Yeah. Cartridges, bigger printers, there's a Pro 1000 I reviewed a few years ago, Epson P7000. Ones like that, the ink comes in cartridges. In general, the ink is less expensive by volume if you're buying cartridges for bigger printers, but you're paying more for the printers like that. But how much ink actually gets used? Well, to do that properly needs some quite detailed testing, and it's not the sort of testing I can do. You need to sort of run off like 100 sheets of a known image, measure, weigh your cartridges for it. Fortunately, there is a company in the US, Red River Paper, and I'll put a link to this in the notes, that has done some experiments on this, and they have overall general costs of ink. Now, of course, that's based on the costs of ink when they were doing it, so you may need to do a bit of maths to work out what it actually means. But if you want a guide to how much ink different printers use, and the costs of the ink, have a look at that table there. It cannot give you perfect up-to-date information, but if you're that worried about costs, then either you're in a very low margin business, or you should perhaps look at a printer with ink tanks in it if the ink costs are that important to what you think you're going to be doing. So I've got no data. I test such a variety of prints and things like that. There is no way I can get meaningful ink usage data from my testing. It doesn't come out. I can get an idea. So for example, the Epson P700, I was able to say it nearly fills the maintenance cartridge on initial first setup. Now, fortunately, Epson saw sense and gave a second spare maintenance cartridge with that printer when it was first out, and that sort of gets around it, but still it uses up quite a bit of ink. This comes up to the next bit of information that I cannot give you. You will have to search out people who use it on print forums and things, and I'll put links in the notes here to a couple of print forums I regularly frequent myself, where I think I will get reasonable answers to things. There are others, and if you know particularly good ones, feel free to let me know. And that is how much ink gets used up in cleaning. I don't know. It depends so much on your usage of the printer, the actual printer itself. So for example, the Canon Pro 1000, excellent printer. I tested this in 2015. It still has the best quality sheet paper handling of any desktop printer that I've tested. It's very good, for that. But some people have said it uses up a lot of ink in cleaning if you don't use it very often. I've heard figures as high as 50% of your ink being used in cleaning cycles if you occasionally use it. Well, I've got no way of knowing how true that is, because I had the printer for a few months, did quite a variety of prints, different types of prints, and was using it regularly doing the testing for the review. So I don't get, for test printers, to say, right, these printers I'm going to leave for 4 weeks and see what happens. I do not live in a printer warehouse. I wouldn't be allowed to live in a printer warehouse. I'm told there are more than enough printers around the house as it is, without having more of them just sitting idle just to see what happens and things like that. So I can't really give you that sort of information. Take any that you find on forums under advisement, because remember, you've got no idea of the conditions that that person had, how many prints they did, how often they'd printed. It could vary by printer. You don't know what the climate was like, so whether things dried out or not. So you just can't get reliable information on that. Now, that's something after a few years that you may have some info, but it's, if you're looking for a printer that's just come out, I can't give you information on that, and I would say that anyone that claims to give you information on that, treat it with suspicion and look at how they arrived at those figures with some care. So, I can help with things like paper choice. I can point out different papers. I can show, for example, like the Epson ET18100, excellent dye-based ink tank printer, is, amongst ink tank printers, the best dye-based ink printer I've come across in terms of glossy photo prints. But it is absolutely useless if you try and put art papers through it. The paper feed does not like thick art papers and things. I've got details in the review which you can have a look at for stuff like that. Now, those are things I can cover, and I can sort of try lots of different papers. I try original equipment manufacturers, so Canon papers, Epson papers in Canon and Epson printers. I try a number of third-party papers, but those third-party papers are limited by what I can get in the UK. So once again, even though I make profiles available for them and they're there, you have to think, well, which of these, are any of these paper types available where I am? Now, fortunately, there are only a limited number of paper makers and paper coaters, so it's quite likely that papers you'll get in other places are similar to what I can get here. So, for example, there's a guy I used to know at a printer paper company, and I could take some paper to him, and he could probably tell me who made it just from looking at the box, the paper, and a few things like that. And he pointed out when I had some paper from the States to have a look at, somewhat you go, oh, I know what this is. They've got their own range. They've got it's the same paper, but the names are different. So you have to look at the specs, the detailed specifications for the paper for that. That is stuff I can tell you about. Longevity is another area where I can say this uses such and such inks, but unless you have a look at the data on the Wilhelm site or some of the other testing sites for things, actually having an idea that a print will still look good in 20 years time, 50 years time, 5 months time, that takes a lot of effort. So you need to go to a specialized site if archival properties are important for you. Can I tell you how often to use the printer? Well, not really. I can give general indications. Like larger printers, such as this P5000 here, that needs using every week ideally. Doesn't like being left for periods of time. Smaller printers like this ET8550, that doesn't mind quite so much. The Canon Pro 1000, I'd rather be using that at least every few weeks, although some people say then if you're not careful you end up using a lot of ink for cleaning. depends on the costs and stuff there. That's information I cannot easily give you. I'd love to be able to just go, well, yes, this is all the stuff you need. I don't normally measure print times, for example, so I can't tell you that it took, 6 minutes, 8 seconds to print this picture here. I will content myself with saying it took a few minutes. There are reviews, and they're typically office equipment type reviews, where they will give you timings to the second, as if it really mattered whether a print like this took 5 minutes 30 seconds or 6 minutes 15 seconds. Does it matter? I think not. But if it's important to you, think why it's important, and you may well be able to find some information for it, but it's not the sort of stuff that I'm going to measure. I print far too varied pictures and things when I'm testing stuff, quite a variety. Something else I got asked about was to compare levels of customer service. I'm assuming this was between the major printer manufacturers. I simply cannot do this. I've got no interaction with the customer service sides of these companies. I know people at Canon, I know people at Epson. I did a while ago knew some people at HP. These were people who were nowhere near the customer facing side of the business. They had no idea about how their support services were. Support services can be farmed out, they can be contracted out. I really have no idea. So an unfortunate thing, the Epson ET18100 I mentioned is a splendid printer if you want to print glossy photo prints up to A3 or 13 by 19. Unfortunately, it's not available in the US and several other markets. I've said to people, well, why not ask Epson? Somebody asked Epson about why the 18100 wasn't, and they got some boilerplate text from support. And then when they pushed the matter, effectively, Epson support in this area where they were trying to get, refused to talk to them. Now, I'm going to say that, certainly not a job I'd fancy doing, working on support for something like that. But these people are reading off scripts. They have no independent ability to ask questions. If they haven't got an answer, they refer it up. It's not, it is pointless getting bothered by them. Unfortunately, these are the people you often have to deal with if you have problems with your printer or want information on your printers. So it could be better, but I don't phone these people up. Certainly not in other countries, so I genuinely cannot give you any information there on support. Is one support better than another? I don't know. Never talk to them, and if I've got no information, I'm certainly not going to give you an opinion on which is better or which is worse and things like that. So that's a sort of a general sort of set of things. Where else can you look for information? Well, obviously, if you look on places like Amazon and some of the other sellers, you will find user reviews. Well, these user reviews can be worth a scan, but obviously, there are fake reviews out there. You're also, if you're reading a review on a site that's trying to sell you a printer, find that they take reviews off people. What credentials have these people got for doing it? Remember that people who tend to post reviews are either because they're great or they've had a problem. Now, every printer has problems. When I had this 8550 here, this is actually the second 8550 because it was a brand new printer. It was actually before it came out. The first one had some mechanical issues and I swapped it with Epson. But then I expect that it's a brand new printer. It's not even been released. In fact, it was a pre-release engineering test version of it. So I wasn't really surprised at things like that. Now, I can take that into account when I'm looking at things. I can look at issues I come across and think, is this an ongoing issue, or is this something that I've got a Duff printer? I may mention that I had a Duff printer. I've had printers before damaged in transit, so it does happen even when I'm getting stuff sent to a review. So there's looking at that. That's one thing, but an awful lot of online reviews, all they reveal is the complete and utter incompetence of the people writing it. I'm sorry, but I get asked. I don't mind people asking full question. There is no such thing as a stupid question. If somebody's got a printer, they've got a problem, I am happy, and I always say this in the reviews and that, yeah, if you've got questions, ask me. Because if it's a genuine problem of something, it may show an issue. I may do a video about it. Take, for example, the Mac AirPrint problems that you get with Canon printers and Epson printers. I've put a few videos, and I know that saved people trouble on that. That's one thing. But when people just write reviews, be very wary also on forums as well, things, when you get somebody say something along the lines of, I had a rubbish Epson printer, can insert your printer name here, in 2006. I'm never touching that company ever again. Well, that's just plain stupid. Yeah, you're entitled to your views, as irrational as you like, but putting that forward as a reason why somebody else should not buy an Epson, a Canon, or whatever printer for that. Just be wary when you're looking at stuff like that. I try and make everything I put into the reviews, particularly the written ones, which is where the detail goes into, I try and make sure that everything that's in there is something I can back up and justify. And that, unfortunately, does mean, as I said, there's a whole load of things I possibly can't really address. Now, some things, if you write to me, if you send me an email and ask me a direct question, I have sort of, I'll go, well, yes, I've heard that. But it's something apocryphal, something that I'm certainly not going to put in a video saying, oh, there is such and such a fault with a product. I don't know. I don't have enough, nor do I really want, enough data to be able to give you reliable accounts of how reliable printer X versus printer Y is. That's something I'm afraid you're just going to have to do more research. So I hope that covers a few things of use. I'll try and put as much detail and things into the printer reviews as possible to try and make them as helpful as possible to people, but I absolutely will not put stuff into them that I don't feel I can personally stand up and justify. I don't sell printers. I have no interest whether you buy one printer or another. So, don't ask me which is best. That's a whole other area I'm not going to get into. But, if you want the information, please feel free to ask. Anyway, I hope enough meandering on that subject. I hope that's been of some interest, and it gives a bit of context for a lot of the testing and reviews I've done. I've done quite a few related videos to this, and I'll put plenty of links in the notes to the video if you want to follow it up more. But anyway, thanks for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. Once again, I forget that bit. But anyway, there you go. Thanks for watching.